folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio, where today I'll be doing a tutorial to try and answer one of the most often asked questions I get here on the layout. And that is, how exactly do I model these Saguaro cactus?
Growing to heights of over 40 feet, the stately saguaro cactus is a symbol of Arizona and the American Southwest. The largest cactus species in the U.S., they range from Arizona's Mogollon Rim country all the way down into the mountains of Sonora, Mexico. So, if you choose to model this amazing, diverse desert region, you're probably going to need more than a few saguaro cacti. Unfortunately, I've never been able to find any commercial products that accurately represent this iconic species of cactus. And that leaves the modeler on his own to come up with solutions. Some have tried carving them from balsa wood or even dowels, but some of the very best I've ever seen have been done in HO scale out of Sculpey clay by my friend Travis Hanschug. My approach is a little different. Here's how I model my saguaros in O scale.
To model my cactus, I prefer to use a product called balsa foam, which is a high-density gold urethane foam that you can get through Amazon or Blick Art Materials or other online retailers, or sometimes at your local craft and hobby shop. It's very similar to the gold urethane foam that's used by special effects prop houses, Walt Disney Imagineering, to do rock work and things like that. I've used it to do rock work also, and for bridge abutments and all kinds of stuff. It's easy to carve. It makes a bit of a mess, but it's definitely worth giving a try. The first step is going to be to create the trunk, the main body of the cactus. And for that, I'm going to want a piece that's about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square. So, just measure. Draw a line. And we'll use a razor saw to cut through this. Now the main tools other than the razor saws that I'll be using for this are a number 11 X-Acto knife, just like that, and some sandpaper. Now the next thing you want to do is round off these square edges. And I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife to make a start on that. Kind of just whittle that down. Take that off. And remember, this is an organic shape, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Then I just like to take the knife and narrow it up towards the top here. And at the bottom. Saguaros don't just come out of the ground like that. They are kind of cigar shaped. Narrow at the top and narrow at the bottom. That's one of the identifying features of this cactus. Now that we have it like that, I'll just use some sandpaper to further round the edges off. And the goal is to get this completely cylindrical. You see, as I'm sanding it, I'm rotating it. Make sure I get all the way around. You want to be careful because you can break these pieces. But if you do break them, they're pretty easy to glue back together with some Aleene's tacky glue or some carpenter's glue or just regular white glue. Takes a little longer, but you can do it. Now the top should be completely rounded off, like that. Down to the bottom, once again, we want to just narrow that down a little bit. right, that's a good start. Now, there's a detail that I want to add to this. This works pretty well, just like this, for a cactus. Once you start putting arms on it, it's identifiable as a saguaro cactus. But there is a feature that saguaros have that a lot of people miss. On wet years, they grow fatter. And on dry years, they grow skinnier. They conserve water. And so what you get is you get kind of fat areas and thin areas and fat areas and thin areas going up, and almost like columns. And you can simulate that with your sandpaper just by going around like this and making little indentations in the cactus. You don't want these lines to be too hard. You want to kind of blend them back into the body so it looks like it's going out and going back in and going out and going back in. See that? That's kind of what we're going for. Let's soften that a little more even. The next step in creating the main trunk is to start scribing in the lines all the way from the top down to the bottom. And these are the kind of give it that accordion look that saguaros have. And here's how I like to do it. You don't use the blade this way. You see that? You don't do it straight. You put the blade perpendicular, sideways to the work, so you can scribe a little bit bigger, wider line. And it's more of a V shape is what you want. And you start at the top and go all the way down. Now I'll go to the opposite side, carry this over the top, and do the same thing on the opposite side. And now we split the difference between these two and start to quarter it. Go this way. And don't worry if you screw up like I did right there. That just adds character. In fact, I'm going to make that a little bit more pronounced. Go around to the other side. And now what do? Well, we split the difference again. And we put a line here. You get the idea. You just keep going around, splitting the difference until you have the columns all the way around the cactus. And this is exactly the same way you're going to do the arms too. Except the arms have a little wrinkle in that they have a bend in them. And I'll get to that in just a minute. Now we split the difference one more time, or as many times as it takes to get that cactus column look. See, now really for O scale, you don't want these columns to be any more than about 1/16 of an inch wide. And there is your basic saguaro trunk. And if you're modeling a younger tree, one that's under 100 years old, you're about done there. This is probably ready to be painted. But we want a saguaro with arms, so that's what we're going to do next. Now to create some arms, again we want a piece that's about 1/2 inch thick, the same as the trunk. But we want it to be a little bit wider across this way, because I'm just going to lay this out next to the trunk, and I want it to connect right about here. We want it to come out from the main body of the cactus, and I'm making this wider than it's actually going to be, like that. So you have sort of a J shape. Now, one mistake I often see when people model saguaro is they have this part too long. or they have them sticking out like this, which sometimes you see in nature, but most often they're growing up, they come out just a little bit, and then they're growing up straight and parallel to the trunk. So we'll cut this piece out next. And this you got to be careful because these tend to break. Okay, now we can start to shape that just like we did the trunk. Now down where the arm joins to the trunk, this narrows down here too, just like it does at the bottom. One thing you don't ever want is for the arms to be thicker or bigger around than the trunk, because they just don't grow that way. That won't look very natural. All right, now I just need to add the columns like I did on the trunk. All right, now we can attach this first arm to the trunk of the cactus. And that's a little bit tricky. First thing we want to do is make kind of a flat spot right here where that arm is going to come out from. Don't want to lose too much of the detail. Just want to carve a little bit down like that. And then this arm is going to sit right in there. Okay, and now we want some sort of structure in here to make this joint a little bit stronger. Because if I was just to glue this on here, it would hold, but if it was bumped or jostled or anything, that arm would probably just break off. No amount of glue is going to hold that as securely as you can do it with glue and a mechanical way of fastening. So we're going to use toothpicks. Only need about a 1/2 inch long piece of toothpick here. And what you don't want to do is just jab this in there, because there's a good chance you'll split it and break it. So you want to put a little, just like you do with wood, put a pilot hole in there. See how easy this stuff is to carve and drill. I'm not even using a pin vise. I'm just twisting this with my fingers. All right. In fact, I went all the way through by accident. There we go. Now, to secure that in place, I'm going to use some cyanoacrylate glue, but I'm going to kick it with a baking soda, which is one of my favorite little tricks of the trade. Makes the cyanoacrylate dry or cure quickly, and it makes for a much, much stronger joint. So I'm going to put some all around this base here, and then just sprinkle on the baking soda. Okay, now we put a matching hole. Is this the one? Yeah. Matching hole into this arm. Perfect. Put some CA on the toothpick. Then I'm going to put some extra around this joint here and kick it with some baking soda. That is not going anywhere. So much stronger of a joint than just butt gluing it on there. Let that set up, and now I can move on to doing the rest of the arms. I have to decide how many we're going to have. Now, before I get too much further on this, I want to add a handle in the form of this long wooden toothpick. You could also use bamboo skewers, and this will give me something to hold it with while I'm painting it, and also a way to plant it into the layout. So I'm just going to drill a hole to receive that toothpick. It needs to be about 1 inch long, maybe a little longer. Okay. Once again, some cyanoacrylate and some baking soda. Make that a nice strong joint. Now we got a handle.
Real saguaros can have as many as 25 arms. I created 4 more arms using the same techniques, varying their sizes and shapes just a bit. Then I connected them to the trunk with a short length of toothpick, some cyanoacrylate, and baking soda.
Okay, our saguaro is just about ready to paint. We got 5 arms on there of different sizes. Tried to do it in as realistic a fashion as I could, though just about everything I modeled turns out looking somewhat caricatured. But this is still looking a little bit too clean and pristine for me, so I'm going to go in and add a little wear and tear. A cactus with this many arms is old and it's been around a long time. It's a grandfather cactus, so it's going to have some woodpecker holes in it. There's a type of woodpecker that lives in the Sonoran Desert called the Gila woodpecker that puts holes all over these cacti, and then other critters come to live in them, elf owls and things like that. So I'm going to add a few things like that, and maybe down here at the bottom some chew marks from some peccaries or javelina. They like to chew on the bottom of the cactus down here. So add a little bit of wear and tear and age, and then we'll be ready to paint this. There we go. There's already one there where I accidentally put one when I was putting the toothpick in. We'll add another one just for fun. There we go. And down here we'll just take and scrape a little bit. Like some critters have been chewing on the bottom here, which they do. One thing I didn't mention is the size of this particular saguaro. It is, where's my ruler? It is, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches tall. So that would be about 20 feet. That would be exactly 20 feet in O scale. So the saguaros I model on Thunder Mesa tend to be a little shorter than they would be in nature. And I explain this by saying they're a northern subspecies. Now, the trick I found of painting these realistically is you don't paint them green, at least not right off the bat. You paint them a dark, dark brown. And the easiest and best way I've found to do that is this Rust-Oleum dark brown ultra flat camouflage paint. It's the same stuff I use to paint my track with. It's the same stuff I use as primer on a lot of detail parts. I love this paint. Can't say enough about it. So I'm going to paint this a flat dark brown. And I have a little tool that I have made for painting small things, details and such. Just a clothespin on a stick so I can hold it out and get good paint coverage with the rattle can. So that's what we're going to do now. The other thing I really like about the camouflage brown is that it dries fast, so it allows you to get on with the project. So I've mixed up some a little bit of Vallejo light chrome green and Vallejo light brown. Mix those together. What you're after is kind of a light olive green color. You don't want a green that's got too much blue in it. So that's why I mix it with the light brown. And I'm just going to brush it on here and try to leave the shadows in the grooves and in the little other details that I put in. Let those show through. So I'm just hitting the tops mostly. And I could airbrush this, but then, or rattle can it for that matter. But then what happens is the paint, you lose that shadow effect with the grooves, which is what you want. Okay, it's starting to look like something. Okay, now that that's dry, I'm going to take and dry brush on some unbleached titanium just to hit the highlights, get some variation, and also to gray this down a little bit more. I'm going to start up here on the top, because these are always lighter up on the top than they are down towards the bottom. I have a semi-stiff brush for this. See, I'm just hitting the top there. Now I want to turn it over, come down here on the bottom and do the same thing. You see these things out in the wild, they tend to get kind of gray down towards the bottom. I think I about got it. There's one more thing I want to do. Go back and touch up these little chew marks down here in the bottom. Make that a little darker. Where the wild pigs, the collared peccaries, javelinas have been chewing on it. The very last step is I'm just going to take some colored chalks, little green, little tan. You notice they're very much similar to the acrylic colors I used, and dust these on here to kill any shine, make it totally matte, and just to make it look dusty and like it's been growing out in the desert for 200 years or more. All right, I think that saguaro is ready to plant on the layout, and I've got just the spot for it.
Folks, thanks for watching this tutorial on making Saguaro Cactus. I hope you might try making some of your own. If you like seeing projects and how-tos like this, please consider supporting Thunder Mesa Studio on Patreon or on YouTube as a Rail Pass member. Keep moving forward, amigos. Adios for now.